There is a supernatural world that surrounds us, and sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. You'll hear stories about this and so much more right here on Supernatural Confrontations. I think you'll find this story incredibly interesting. It's very unnerving. And when I heard it, I immediately asked Anonymous, because he can't come on the record. And that's why some people have jobs, and I get that. And it might jeopardize their job or their career. So we just leave it at that. We keep them anonymous. But I want to thank this man for coming on the record and being courageous enough to come on the record. And we'll get into his story, which I think you'll find pretty unnerving, as it unnerved me. And I've heard a lot of stuff. Never heard this one before. Right after a word from our trusted sponsor. Have you started to notice an increase in the appearance of wrinkles, fine lines, bags under your eyes, or other usual signs of aging? It may be more than just stress. Wrinkles and other marks of aging are one of the top signs that your collagen levels are low. It becomes more vital every year that you get older to supplement collagen into your diet for the sake of your skin's health. As you've gotten older, for example, you may have found that your skin isn't as strong. Whether you're in your 20s or 90s, you can experience the healthy aging effects collagen has on your skin with the help of this multi-collagen powder that I love to use. Folks, I've noticed a reduction in the appearance of wrinkles and fine lines. My skin has once again regained its youthful glow, hydration, and elasticity. Take a look at this mug, folks. Also, although I originally bought it to rejuvenate my skin, I was shocked to find that it also improved the health of my hair, nails, and joints as well. Folks, I want you to try it as well and experience the amazing effects that I've noticed in myself. Get a bag today for 51% off, plus receive several free bonuses before their spring sale ends by going to healthwithla.com. That's healthwithla.com, and get ready to look your best this new year, 2023. Folks, 60-day money-back guarantee. 5 types of collagen you need from 4 different sources. For every order today, we will donate a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor through our partnership with NoKidHungry.org. I mean, you can't beat this stuff. It's non-GMO. It's free of artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, sweeteners, and gluten-free antibiotics. Folks, this stuff is great. Go to healthwithla.com. That's healthwithla.com. So we're just going to call you Mr. A, because that's what works. Thanks for coming on Supernatural Confrontations. Tell us what happened.
Sure. And just kind of before we even get into what exactly happened at that time at the middle school that I had attended, several months before that, I had received a dream, and I felt it was from the Lord. And in this dream, I was walking into like a school grounds, and I saw these black hooded figures that were like tormenting little kids. They were like pushing their heads against the walls and things like that. And I was looking around, and I saw that there was teachers seeing that was what was going on, but they weren't doing anything about it. And I immediately, something inside of me kind of just came up and said, is anybody going to do anything about this? And as soon as I did, I took off running towards one of the hooded figures, and it ran away, and I was able to catch up to it and bind its hands behind its back, and I landed on top of it, and it just kind of stood there, and I woke up, and I was like, whoa. So, just in times of prayer, saying, God, like, what does this mean? I understand I was in school grounds and things like that, and so I began to just kind of ponder and just kind of let it kind of soak in, and eventually there came an opportunity through the church I was attending, where someone came and asked me, and they said, hey, would you be open to presenting at a career fair in a city here in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area? And I said, sure. I wouldn't mind. I'm an engineer by trade, right, in the aerospace world. So I was very much open to that, and I said, in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, Lord, this must be how you want me to be on school grounds and to pray for people, and so I did. Right, I ended up going to that school maybe I think 3 years in a row, and I believe it was the second year that I had went. I did my usual setup. Had a friend of mine as well, a coworker of mine, set up next to me, and we had hardware things that we developed. Types of it is has a lot to deal with physics, and I know pretty much the general information about it, but it was very interesting that day. I had set everything up. I set up the laptop that I was using at that time, and once they let the kids into the career area, it was an auditorium. Immediately they go bombard all the different tables, right? And
Sure.
so I was looking down at that time, and I noticed there was like a fly kind of flying around, and I was swatting it while I was messing with the laptop. And then a group of kids came up to the front desk, and one in the middle in particular began to ask me a question about the technology. But it wasn't a regular question, and part of me, it's been a few years, so I don't remember exactly what that question was, but I remember
Okay.
it had to do with deep physics. And I was like, who's asking this type of question, and why would they even ask this? This is beyond my knowledge and beyond anybody's knowledge that I know of. And so immediately I knew something was strange. And I looked up, and it looked like maybe a 14-year-old boy, Caucasian in figure, and there was nothing out of the ordinary about him. And at first, right, other than there was like the flies kind of flying around, and I saw one on his sweater. He was wearing like a red sweatshirt, and I go, hey man, you have a fly on your sweater, and I tried to swat it off. So I touched the sweater. I knew it was a physical person, and he kind of looked away and just kind of said, oh, don't worry about that, And I was like, what do you mean? So I'm processing this in my head, like, what do you mean, don't worry about that, right? And so I turned and looked to my friend David to see, I'll just call him David, to see if he was, catching this whole experience that was kind of going on. And he was swatting the flies, and but he wasn't looking this way. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is strange. And so I began to talk to him, and there was other kids around him. They were discussing within themselves, but they weren't looking at him. So it was a very strange experience. It was just like me and this person, right? This 14-year-old. And so I began to ask him, I go, hey, so I, hear you're interested in, seems like you're interested in this type of technology, and are you aware about aerospace and things like that, right? And so when he looked at me, he smiled, and he started talking, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but when he smiled, he had these jagged teeth. They were like a shark, but the gaps in between was black. And that's when I knew immediately that this is definitely not normal, and something is going on. And so I was pretty much in shock at that point. I didn't really know what to say or anything like that. I knew it even caught me off guard. I knew I was there to pray for the children and ask that God would protect them and things like that. But I was still caught off guard that this experience happened, right? That this entity came to speak to me. And so at that point, I was just kind of in awe. And the boy ended up saying, oh, that's it. That's all I had. And he turned around and he walked away. And as soon as he walked away, the other kids kind of came in and began to talk to me. But I was still kind of in shock that whole thing happened, right?
So let me, Mr. A, let me kind of drill into this a little bit. What kind of clothes was he wearing? And you said like a red sweater or a red sweatshirt.
Yeah, I believe it was like a red sweatshirt. I mean, it looked like what a teenager would wear, right? It was like, I think it was a zip-up sweatshirt,
Okay.
kind of gray. It had a little hood on it. It didn't look dark. It didn't look scary in any way, shape, or form. It just looked like, he was presenting himself like he was a kid.
I'm assuming when you saw the face, you looked in his eyes. Did the eyes seem unnatural in any way?
I did kind of look at his eyes. His eyes did not look unnatural, but
Okay.
I didn't pay that much attention to his eyes. it was more the mouth that really caught my attention. I was
So
just like,
when
whoa.
let's drill into the mouth then, no pun intended. But when you're looking at this kid's mouth, you talked about jagged, sharp teeth. Describe that. Try to really drill into that. What did when you say sharp teeth? Were they like a human being's? Were they chemical points? Were there spaces in between? What did it look like?
Yeah, I mean, from the top, they were basically upside down triangles, right? Like if you were to look at shark's teeth,
Like
that's
a
what
great
they
white,
look like.
yeah, like a great white.
wide, triangular in shape, one next to each other, but the space in between was just black. It was just black. Like you couldn't see anything like the back of his mouth or throat or anything. All you saw was the sharp, jagged teeth and darkness in between.
Did any of the children make contact with this guy?
They were definitely next to him. So I'm pretty sure they're like shoulder to shoulder. They were touching him. But again, they were kind of in their own conversations and they weren't really focused on what he was saying. It was this weird experience where it's just like me and him and everything else is just kind of, in the background, but nobody's interacting with anybody, as far as like with me or trying to. They're just kind of in their own conversation. So it seemed like they were definitely in a different zone, right?
Okay,
and it was just
that's
me and this
interesting.
other entity. Yeah.
When he's talking to you, when this entity is talking to you, now you mentioned a couple of flies. How many flies were there? Could you remember roughly?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure he had at least like 10 flies on him. 10 flies on him and flying around. They were like on his back, just kind of flying. And there was like maybe about, I'd say half of them were like stuck on him, right? Like they were just on him, like latched onto him. And
when you mentioned that, he said, "Don't worry about." What did he say? What did he say again?
Yeah, he said something like that, like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about those," And I'm like, so in my head, I'm like, "What do you mean, don't worry about those? You have flies on you. This is not normal, right?"
What did his hands look like?
His hands looked regular, like a regular child's hand. So there was nothing abnormal that I saw that I could recognize from his hands. As well.
How about his hair and ears?
His hairs, I believe it was kind of like a blondish hair. Yeah, blondish hair. I didn't see anything abnormal with his ears either. Yeah.
Do you remember the question that he asked you? Do you remember that at all?
No, but it had something to do with physics. It had to do with electrons, things like that, right? But things that no child, maybe not even a professor would probably ask. Like it's beyond our level of understanding what he asked. Again, I apologize. I was like probably more closer to 5 years ago, so I don't remember exactly what he said, right? But it wasn't a normal question that a 14-year-old boy would ask, especially an adult or even somebody in physics, right? Would ask that type of question.
This is way beyond, a normal 14-year-old's pay grade. I mean, is that a safe?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Beyond a 14-year-old, beyond even a physicist understanding of that, right? And so it was almost like a test. Like it knew that I was limited in knowledge. It knew that I was limited in understanding, and it tested me, right?
Now, when it left the scene, none of the boys reacted to that. They didn't say like, "Hey, Bob, we'll see you later." "Hey, Jack." They just closed ranks. Describe that.
Yep.
What happened?
Yep, that's exactly what it was. So he kind of said, "Oh, thanks." He turned around and walked away. And keep in mind, there's probably a couple of hundred of kids in this area. So he was kind of just worked his way out, and everybody kind of came in at that point. But as soon as he walked away, it's when I turned and I talked to my buddy next to me, and I tapped him. I said, "Hey, did you notice? I know you saw the flies, right? Did you see the flies?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw the flies." And I go, "Did you not see the kid that was right here in front of me?" He's like, "Well, I knew you were talking to somebody, but I didn't turn around and see him because he was discussing with some other children that were asking him questions on his side." And I said, "Oh my gosh!" And that's when I began to explain to him what had happened, and he was just like, "Really?" Yeah. And he's actually a fellow believer as well, right?
Okay.
So
All
he
right.
understands that what we're warned against and things like that. But it was very strange for him. Unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to see what I saw, but But yeah, that's what happened. So he kind of worked his way out, and then we were trying to look for him as he was working his way out,
That's
but
my next
I
question,
didn't see him. Yeah.
So you never saw the kid again, correct?
Yeah, never saw him again. Yeah.
And none of the other boys that were there or the kids that were there said anything about him?
I believe, no, they didn't say anything about him, but I believe I asked him, I said, hey, do you need any of you guys like know who that was? And everybody's like, no. Like they kind of turned around and were like, no. Right.
So without putting
like,
words
oh my
in your
gosh.
mouth, is it possible that you were sort of transported someplace else, even though you're there in that reality? He's there and you're having this conversation with this entity, but only the two of you can hear. I mean, apparently your buddy doesn't hear anything. He hears that you're talking to somebody, but he doesn't hear an answer. And the other boys that are there, the other children that are there, are engaged in something else. I mean, it's a very strange occurrence. There's no doubt about it. Very strange.
Yeah, it definitely felt like we could have been in like some weird bubble thing, right?
Right.
Some weird time warp thing where it was just me and him, and we were there but we weren't, right? I would say that's possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's not really another way to, or not too many ways you can explain that.
Mr.
Right?
A, and another question: when he was speaking to you, did you see his lips move?
Yes, I saw his lips. I mean, his mouth opened up. I didn't see anything strange with the lips, though. It was just the teeth. I mean, that was enough to kind of.
So he was verbally communicating with you in an audible voice.
Oh yes.
Was it
definitely
was it
audible.
really quiet, or was it loud enough to where your buddy, Dave, would have heard everything?
I believe he could have heard what was going on. I believe he did say that he heard me talking with him, but I don't recall exactly, right? But from what I know, I was talking to him audibly. He was talking to me audibly.
Okay.
How much everybody else was able to pick up on, I don't really know. Right?
Was this figure, was he wearing any jewelry, any rings? Or did he have a watch on, anything like that?
No jewelry, no rings. I think he was wearing jeans, right? So just completely posing like a 14-year-old, right?
But he wasn't.
But it definitely wasn't. No 14-year-old has that type of mouth with those type of teeth,
Right.
right? And maybe it was an intimidation thing that he was trying to do, right? But it definitely it wasn't a 14-year-old boy. I can guarantee that one. Yeah.
Was there any unusual odor accompanying him?
No. I mean, I started processing things like that afterwards. I was like, I didn't smell anything like sulfur or anything. Yeah. It was just the flies and the teeth that.
That's pretty interesting. Mr. A, I'll give you the last word, and thanks so much for coming on Supernatural Confrontations. Please.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate you opening this platform, right, to be able to share testimonies like this. But I think God allowed this to happen for a reason, and He wants the church to really know that what we're up against, and to be bold. We cannot be intimidated as the people of God, and we will not be intimidated as the people of God. We're called to pray, to intercede. To protect the innocent, right? The children, our children, right?
Amen.
Across the globe. Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. So there you go, folks. The supernatural world is real. I mean, I really don't have too much to add to this. I think we've covered exactly what happened. Very strange. Was there some sort of a bubble that Mr. A and this entity shared? And while Dave heard part of the conversation, he didn't hear what the entity said, at least wasn't paying any attention to it. And then we've got the flies. So we've got some stuff here. We've got the flies manifesting, and then we've got the question, which is really, as Mr. A said, at a university professorial level, perhaps even beyond that. So I'm not sure what the question was. Not having a physics background, I have no idea, but I will say this, whoever this entity was, and I agree with Mr. A, it was like a test. He came there testing, and who knows, why or anything else. But one thing I do know, that the supernatural world is real. If you have a supernatural confrontation and you'd like to weigh in on it, whether it's an angelic visitation, the Lord saved you, you were healed, near-death experience, or you've had some of the demonic stuff, shoot us an email, supernatural@lamarzulli.net, supernatural@lamarzulli.net. By the way, I will be in Jupiter, Florida on the 19th. Looking forward to that. Crop Circles, the video is here, along with all of our UFO series. You can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net, and avail yourself of all 5. So I'll give you a hint. We were in Colorado with Chuck Zukowski, not last week, but the week before, and we were filming about cattle mutilations. And of course, that'll be number 6 in the series, and we hope to have that out by June. There will be a pre-sale, like always. Folks, you can go to our streaming site, streaming, like a stream, streaming.lamarzulli.net, and avail yourself of all 5 DVDs. Educate yourself of what is coming, because what is coming is the coming Great Deception. It is the Great Deception, and it will fool a whole lot of people. But you will not be fooled. You will not be deceived. Remember, Jesus warns us that even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. Those are very strong and a dire warning to us. Now it's thousands of years later, and this stuff is manifesting in ways that I've never seen. Time to buckle up, do your homework, check out the videos. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of On the Trail of the Nephilim, and I think you'll find this interesting. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, there is a supernatural world that surrounds us. Sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. Thanks so much for watching.